My name is Rocky Moretti. Moretti is Moretti. I'm the Director of Policy and Research with TRIP, a nonprofit transportation research organization based in Washington, D.C. Our new report today is looking at the latest data on the condition and the use and the safety of Maine's transportation system, and it's based on the latest data from the Maine Department of Transportation as well as the U.S. Department of Transportation. The format today is after I give my comments on the report, we're going to hear from Mayor Patricia Hart of the City of Gardner, and we'll also hear from Mary Ann Brenchick. Mary Ann is the Deputy Public Works Director for Augusta. The format will be after we've given our comments, that anyone attending the news conference who has a question can signal that with the either the chat or the raised hand function. And then my colleague Carolyn Kelly will recognize you so that you can be elevated to panelist status so that you can interact with us normally with any questions or follow-up questions you might have. The report today is called Keeping Maine Mobile, and really is an attempt to really get a sense of what's the current condition of the system, what's being done to address some of the challenges, and looking into the future, the need for making further improvements. The report points out that while Maine has certainly over the last 6 years been able to make significant investment in improving the condition, safety, and reliability of its roads and bridges, the state still faces a significant challenge in addressing future needs as we see travel returning back to pre-pandemic levels. In order to continue to make these improvements, Maine is going to need to have in place predictable funding rather than relying on short-term, one-time funding infusions. The report finds that during COVID, there was a significant drop in travel across Maine, but as of last year, vehicle travel in Maine was now 1% higher than pre-pandemic levels as the state's economy and the level of vehicle travel has recovered. The state received a significant boost in available funding for its roads and bridges in 2021 at the federal level with the passage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which resulted in a 29% boost in funding available for road and bridge improvements in Maine. Similarly, the legislature in 2024 and 25 provided an additional $165 million in Maine for improvements to the state's transportation system. This additional investment has allowed the state to invest $6.8 billion since 2018 on projects including repairs to 6,200 miles of highways with another 4,400 miles of roadway improvements underway and repairs to 366 bridges with active plans to move forward with also further improvements to approximately 300 bridges. But the state's ability to improve safety conditions and also reliability has been hampered by significant inflation in highway investment. The Federal Highway Administration reports looking at highway construction cost inflation, a measurement of both labor and materials. The Federal Highway Administration finds that inflation in highway construction has been 43% during 2022 and 2023. Obviously, this has had a significant impact on the state's ability to proceed with the projects that are needed to both improve conditions, but also enhance reliability and most critically make the system safer. TRIP estimates that the cost to Maine motorists of roadways that are deficient, are congested, and lack desirable safety features is $1.6 billion annually. TRIP estimates that for Bangor drivers, the annual cost of roads that are deficient, congested, or lacking desirable safety features is $1,824 annually. In the Portland area, TRIP estimates that the average annual cost to motorists of roads that are deteriorated, congested, or lacking some desirable safety features is $1,525 annually. These costs include lost time, When roads are congested and it takes you longer to get places, we put a value on that lost time. It's the cost of driving on rough roads, which puts vehicles under more stress, which accelerates their deterioration and also increases fuel consumption and tire wear. And then finally, we look at the economic cost of serious and fatal traffic crashes, realizing that the reality, of course, is that the cost of fatal traffic crashes extend far beyond simply the economic cost. The report also looked at the latest data in terms of pavement conditions and bridge conditions. The TRIP report found that in Maine, 19% of major roadways have pavements in poor condition, and another 35% are in fair condition. The report found that in the Bangor area, that 18% of major roads have pavements in poor condition, and another 27% are rated in fair condition. In the Portland area, the report found that 18% of major roads have pavements in poor condition, and another 33% are rated in fair condition. The TRIP report found that 15% of bridges in Maine are in poor condition and in need of immediate repair, the fourth highest rate nationally, and another 60% are in fair condition and in need of ongoing maintenance to keep them from falling into poor condition. The report found that in the Bangor area, 18% of bridges are rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repair, and another 62% are rated in fair condition. In the Portland area, the TRIP report found that 12% of bridges are rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repair, and another 62% are rated in fair condition. The report points out that a bridge rated in poor condition doesn't suggest that the bridge is in any danger of failure. The reality is these bridges are inspected regularly, and the state, if they needed to close a bridge or restrict it to lighter weight vehicles, they would do that to keep people safe. The challenge, of course, is these bridges are absolutely vital to the functioning of our transportation system. And as they age, the repairs that are necessary to keep them open become more costly. So it's critical that the state have the resources available to move forward with those conditions. The report also took a look at traffic congestion in Maine. And certainly as we've seen travel return to pre-pandemic levels, we see the additional congestion on the road. The report finds that in the Bangor area, the average motorist is spending an additional 28 hours annually stuck in traffic due to traffic congestion. The report finds that in the Portland area, that the average motorist is spending an additional 28 hours annually stuck in traffic due to traffic congestion. The report also took a look at safety and points out that over the last 5 years, from 2019 to 2023, there have been 792 people killed in traffic crashes in the state. We'll talk quickly about some of the solutions to making them safer, but we also took a look at these numbers regionally. The report found that from 2018 to 2022, an average of 18 people were killed annually in the Bangor area in traffic crashes. The report also found that from 2018 to 2022, an average of 21 people annually were killed in the Portland area in traffic crashes. It's estimated that in approximately a third of roadway traffic fatalities, that the level or the type of roadway safety features on that roadway had an impact or were a contributing factor to those traffic crashes. And that also includes facilities for bicyclists and pedestrians, which also are a significant share of the traffic fatalities across the country and also in Maine. The U.S. Department of Transportation has implemented a safe systems approach, which really is a very broad, holistic set of improvements, starting with the driver themselves to make sure that the driver, through their own behavior as well as enforcement, are driving within the speed limit, are not impaired, and are not distracted. But it also includes an important element of making roadway safety features as safe as possible for motorists, but also for pedestrian and bicyclists. And we know that when state and local governments make improvements to their transportation system, that typically also includes improving safety to the system. Finally, the report found that each year, $87 billion in goods are shipped to and from sites in Maine. And we anticipate that the value of goods shipped in Maine by the year 2050, adjusted for inflation, will increase by another 81%. In fact, 15% of travel on Maine's interstate highways are by combination vehicles. So it points out how critical the system is to the state's economy. So let me conclude there and point out that moving forward, Maine's need to continue to modernize the system is really going to fall on the ability of all level of governments to provide additional funding. We're now going to hear from two additional speakers. At this point, I will turn it over to Patricia.
Great, thank you, Rocky. This is such an important report to combine the US DOT data with the Maine DOT data to understand what our communities need. Gardner certainly is a small but mighty service center, and we definitely benefit when there's this statewide studies on our investments. The amount of money that goes into municipal budgets for roads and infrastructure is significant. And so to have this report telling us where we should be spending our money is really valuable. Here in Gardner, we've benefited from state and federal partnerships to replace 2 of our bridges in our historic downtown. And we're really grateful for those investments over the last 4 years because the bridges were in need of repair, and we suffered 2 catastrophic floods last year, and the new bridges really held up well. So we're grateful for that and the resilience that it provided to our historic downtown. But I also want to point out that Gardner sits at the nexus of I-95 and 295, the 2 interstates in the state of Maine. And as such, we have a business park out near the highway, and our businesses are mostly distribution oriented. We're 45 minutes from the coast, 45 minutes from Portland, 45 minutes from Western Maine in the Lewiston area, and about an hour from Bangor. So we're sitting right at the perfect spot for interstate distribution. And I know those businesses really rely on the safe highways and the investments in the highway, both state and local, that keep that surface good, keep the roads safe. So we greatly benefit and we from all of the transportation investment here in Gardner, and we look forward to seeing how we can all work together to continue to make more resilient communities and safer transportation.
Thank you, Patricia. Mary Ann?
Hi, thank you for having me. I have worked all over the state of Maine as a traffic engineer in Portland, a director in Lewiston, and coming closer to home in Augusta now is that no matter what size your community is, some of our needs and pleas are common. When you look at our basic local roads, those are all on our own. We have some state roads that the state helps us with. Again, we have also benefited from the IIJA funding. When I just came to Augusta less than a year ago, I'm like, hooray, we got 2 bridges under construction. We got all brand new traffic signals, but paving is always at where the rubber meets the road, right? And it affects everybody, from school kids getting to school, to commuters, to business, movement of goods, to families going to picnics. So everybody has a piece of what we're doing with our roads. And when you look at funding, Augusta has had a few years where they weren't able to fund a lot. So we're doing a little bit of catch up, but 1.3 million is our budget for maintenance paving. It's nothing. It's peanuts. Where Lewiston had 3 million. It's really taken 20% of the need, and not to throw more numbers out there because Rocky's had a lot of numbers. But when you look at more rural areas, is 70% of their roads are in need. 20% are in good shape. So there's even more needs with less resources. And, when we look at doing a neighborhood street now, we're looking at sidewalks, we're looking at speed bumps, and community input is very valuable to us. We need to do more of that. It's hard to get it all the time, but also trying to help the public understand that we, as much as we would love to have sidewalks on every street on both sides, we can't afford it. So where is it that we put one side? Where is it that we put sidewalks on 2 in our downtown commercial areas where the business district is? All of those pieces add to the cost. And, looking at smaller communities versus bigger is where the big contract is going that have the better pricing. So competitive bidding is a challenge as well. But I think, that predictable or sustained funding, I love how you put that, because the ups and downs is just, it's impossible to manage. And when we have 70% of our roads looking at a 4 to 7 year life, we don't want to be in panic mode. We want to be able to do this responsibly, make our best judgments, make that money spread. And collaboration is a huge piece of that. I mean, we work very closely with our utility companies. Nothing is more tragic than someone coming in and ripping up a road that was just built. So collaboration is really big. I mean, we all want the same end goal of, safe and sustainable roads and transportation. So just to say a little bit about where the rubber meets the road is public works.
Thank you. I'll now ask Carolyn to explain how we will answer or handle questions.
Sure. Thank you, Rocky. I'm Carolyn Kelly. I'm the Director of Communications and Research for TRIP. So at this point, now that we've heard from Mayor Hart and from Mary Ann and Rocky, we'll be able to do a Q&A where those on the call can ask questions live of our panelists, and they'll be able to interact with you. The way that'll work is that you can either use the raise hand function that you see at the bottom of your screen, or you can submit your question or just let me know via the Q&A function that you'd like to ask a question. And then I'll be able to elevate you to a panelist, and you'll be able to ask your question live of Rocky or Mary Ann or Mayor Hart. So if there are any questions, as I said, you can use the raise hand function, or you can use the chat or the Q&A buttons to let us know that you'd like to ask a question. While we wait for some questions to come in, I'll note that the full report is now up on the TRIP website. You can find that at tripnet, tripnet.org. We've also got news releases with the specific data for each of the 3 urban areas that we've covered in the report. So you can find all those materials on our website. And we also will have a recording of this news conference up on our website, probably around 11 o'clock this morning. So you can get all of those materials there. Rocky, at the moment, I don't see any questions that have come in. So if there's anything that you or Patricia or Mary Ann would like to add, feel free to go.
I was going to ask the mayor a question. I'm sort of curious in your role as mayor, sort of the interaction of the city's sort of business development plans and infrastructure, kind of the nexus there. And in sort of an ideal world where funding is adequate, I'm just curious if you could sort of address how the extent and quality of the region infrastructure impacts sort of the city's future in terms of economic development.
Well, transportation most definitely impacts our businesses and our community. So I would say it impacts community and economic development. We had a taste of that this summer. I'm pointing to the bridge here outside my window where they changed the decking out on the bridge, and we could only come one way into Gardner across the Kennebec River. And it really chilled businesses because for 4 weeks people couldn't go back and forth on the bridge. And so we were reminded just how important it is to invest in infrastructure, make sure it's there to use when we need it, and how we're all interconnected. That bridge goes from Randolph across the Kennebec to Gardner, and we just realize how connected we are to the coast and all things on the eastern side of the Kennebec. But as I explained before, we're fortunate enough to be right on the intersection of I-95 and 295, which means not only are businesses accessing that for their distribution side of what they do and their delivery, it also means that people come through Gardner, and people who live here in Gardner use the roads and highways to get to work. So it's critically important to make sure our roads are safe and that they're accessible. And I would put a plug into the people in Portland and Bangor who are sitting in traffic for 28 extra hours a year. They should move to Gardner, where we don't sit in traffic for 28 extra hours a year, and you can get everywhere you need to get pretty handily.
Well, thank you. Well, I think, Carolyn, I'll let you sort of have the final word as we as we wrap up. But I will point out that certainly I'm available throughout the day for if there's any follow-up questions or requests for individual interviews.
Oh, it looks like that we do have one question that came in. Says, does TRIP have any suggestions as to how to provide a steady funding source, whether that's higher gas taxes or other methods?
Well, certainly this is the challenge that we're seeing all states, and certainly looking into the future. One of the challenges, particularly as thankfully vehicles are becoming more fuel efficient, the challenge, of course, is that the less fuel that they use, which is positive environmentally and also on the pocketbook, but that's bringing in less resources. And so certainly that is a challenge that state governments are looking at, and also ultimately as we move to electric vehicles, that will be another issue in terms of funding the system. And so really it's looking at how to address the need for sustainable, adequate funding, but recognizing that one of the key funding bases is starting to erode.
And Marianne or Mayor Hart, if you'd like to add anything else before we wrap up, please feel free to go ahead.
I just wanted to add that, for Maine, we also have winters, and not every state has that. And it makes it, doubly hard to maintain roads when you have the frost heaves. And for people to have patience when we post roads, because that's the only way we can control trying to keep them better from the heavier traffic. And like Mayor Hart said as well, diverting traffic through these local roads that weren't built for that kind of heavy traffic. So we do have winter challenges. They're right in front of us. So just have patience, I guess, and know that, that's another challenge that we need to overcome.
Thank you. Carolyn, are there any other questions?
No, there are no further questions, but like Rocky said, he and I are available throughout the day for any follow-ups, and we can also put you in touch with Mayor Hart and with Marianne as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you.
And, hope everyone has a productive, safe day.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.